My name is Arthur Sterling, and this is the story of how I created a masterpiece, and in the process, completely lost my soul. But it's also the story of how I found it again, in a way I never ever could have predicted. It's a journey that made me question everything I thought I knew about art, and, as it turns out, about life itself.
This was the core belief, the fear, really, that dictated my entire life. I was absolutely convinced that a person's heart only had room for one great passion. You could have the ferocious, all-consuming demands of poetry, or you could have the tender, complicated world of love. But both? No way. I truly believed they couldn't exist in the same space. And so, I chose. I chose my art. I thought it was the only way to protect the flame.
So yeah, I turned my back on the world. What started out as just a hobby quickly became a complete and total obsession. I literally built a universe for myself, one walled off by meter and verse. For 3 solid years, I lived in that solitary little world, and in all that silence, the hidden powers of my imagination were finally let loose.
This right here, this was my creed. A belief I basically inherited from all the great writers I looked up to. For me, artistic ecstasy was my protector. It was this guardian angel that could only survive in solitude. But romantic love? That was the enemy. To me, a woman was this radiant yet deadly serpent. Beautiful to look at, but an absolute terror to the heart. I was convinced that kind of passion would just lead to madness and silence my pen for good. And you know what? My sacrifice, it worked. My poem, The World of Beauty, it just took the literary world by storm. Suddenly, my name was everywhere. Fame, wealth, it all found me right there in my lonely tower. And for a while, I really was the undisputed king.
But here's the thing about fame. It's a terrible companion for a poet. All the endless parties and the empty awards, they just smothered the very feelings I needed to write. So I ran. I fled to the mountains to start my next big work, Illusions. I was looking for that same solitude that saved me before. But instead, I found this terrifying, crushing silence.
It was just a bizarre and cruel experience. I'd sit there for hours, just straining, trying to force my mind to do something, but nothing. Not a single worthy line. The part of me that used to just soar without any effort, my intellect, it had just packed up and left. The well was completely dry. And the most horrifying part, when an idea did manage to flicker to life, it was just garbage. Worn-out themes I absolutely despised. Pale imitations of real inspiration. I just stare at the words on the page, disgusted, and then tear the whole thing to shreds. My gift, this thing I thought was nature's own treasure, felt completely wasted.
I was broken. Simple as that. My imagination, which used to be like a soaring eagle, was now just lying there with crippled wings. My life had become a barren desert, just empty, dry, and totally meaningless. I wandered around for months trying to find a cure, but no landscape, no matter how beautiful, could reignite that fire inside.
So, I came to a decision, a pretty drastic one. I figured if my poetic life was over, then my public life had to be too. It was a desperate escape for sure, but it was also an experiment. I wanted to see how the world would really judge my work when the man who wrote it was no longer around. So, I faked my own death.
Now, I know that sounds extreme, but you have to understand I felt like I was already dead. The vital part of me, the part that created, the part that actually felt things, it was just gone. So faking my physical death, honestly, it just felt like a formality. The reaction from the public was immediate, and just so disappointing. My so-called friends made up all these lies, painting me as some kind of drunk whose genius only came from a bottle. And the critics were even worse. They picked my poems apart, line by line, analyzing the technique, but they completely, totally missed the soul of it, the living, breathing heart of the work. For a while after that, I just wandered around like a ghost. Then one afternoon, I kind of drifted into the public library in Bath, and there I just happened to stumble upon this thin little book of criticism, a book that was about to change absolutely everything. The author's name was Miss Eleanor Hart, and from the very first page, I was just captivated. She wrote with a kind of sensitivity I'd never seen before. Her criticism wasn't a knife, it was a gentle hand. Her praise felt real, like I'd actually earned it.
She saw what everyone else had missed, that a poem isn't some machine made of gears and levers, it's a living, breathing soul.
I knew I had to meet her. A few days later, there I was standing in her home, and I saw it, my own portrait hanging on her wall. Then I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror nearby, this pale, messy stranger I barely even recognized. When she came in, so calm and full of light, she looked at me with this gentle curiosity. And then she asked me, very softly, if I had ever known the poet whose picture was on her wall.
I just lowered my head and, with whatever honesty I had left in me, I told her the truth. I am Arthur Sterling. And just like that, the ghost was gone. In that one moment, watching shock and confusion and wonder just wash over her face, I felt myself being pulled back into the world of the living. That confession just shattered years of silence. Her shock quickly melted into this incredible warmth, and for the first time in what felt like forever, my conversation felt light. Her presence alone stirred something deep inside me, like a forgotten ember that was buried under all the ash of my solitude.
Eleanor became my muse, but she wasn't some abstract idea. Her insight, her actual presence, it awakened a brand new emotion in me, love. The very same feeling I had feared and run from my entire life became the spark that relit my imagination. My creativity came back like a flood, and my great work, Illusions, was finally born.
I had been so unbelievably wrong. Love wasn't the enemy of art at all. It was its greatest ally. It was the nourishment my soul had been starving for, the elixir that could bring back the very emotions I needed to create. My entire old belief system was just shattered, and in its place was this profound, simple truth.
Looking back on it all now, I see it so clearly. My first work, the one born from solitude, it was just a bud, full of potential, but forever closed. But Illusions, born from love, that was the flower in full bloom. The force that opened it was the very thing I had built walls to keep out. And it leaves me wondering, how many of us build fortresses around our own gifts when all they really need to flourish is to be set free?